only see two. Okay, the Board of Library Trustee teleconference meeting is called to order at 7 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Chair Lai,
Here.
Vice Chair Wong,
Here.
Board Member Isaac, not present. Board Member Jane,
Yes, here.
Board Member Cisneros, not present. So 3 present and participating via teleconference.
Thank you. Now we move to the presentation 20-0662 presentation 2020 Patron Satisfaction Survey.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you, so just give me a moment. Okay, if you could let me know if you can see that. Let's see, hold on.
Yep, looks good.
Yes.
Okay, you can see that? All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see, it looks like we've started. Okay, does that look okay? Does it fill the whole screen there? Is it advancing for you?
We're seeing your presentation mode.
Okay, that should be okay, I think.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So as we go through, I have 30 slides here. I'll move quickly through them. But as we go through, let me know if you have any questions, or we can also answer questions at the end. So what this is per your request. I wanted to present to you the results of our 2020 Patron Satisfaction Survey. So this was something we are envisioning to be doing annually. We did it for the first time this year, 2020. It's turned out to be a very unusual year. So it's an interesting baseline to start from. The survey closed, just for kind of context and reference, about mid-February, so just before the pandemic really hit the Santa Clara County area with full force and resulted in the shelter in place in March. So just to kind of keep that in mind as we're kind of reviewing the answers. So I pulled together, there's a lot of information in the survey. We had more than 1,000 respondents, which was really great participation. I think it was something like 12 or 1,300. And then we surveyed 2 groups. One was patrons who use the library, and the other group was non-users. We tried our hardest. We didn't get a lot of response, but we tried our hardest to reach out to people who don't use the library. And we asked them, well, why don't you use the library? What would make you be interested in using the library? So we'll talk about patrons first. Gives you an idea of what we're seeing here. So first one was, how often do people typically visit the library in person? So back in February, people were saying, they visit mostly either once a month or every 2 to 3 weeks. So this is really helpful for us to know because this kind of makes sense, because if you take out, just the circulation period of materials is 3 weeks. So if people are kind of on a cycle of returning materials, picking up new items, returning materials, this is what you would expect to see, and that is what we're seeing. So that's helpful in terms of our planning. So let's see, my slide is not advancing here.
Steve, I just wonder, is it okay to make it full screen?
Sure. So I'm sorry, you want it not full screen?
Full screen, I prefer full screen.
Oh,
It's
okay.
kind of hard to see the word.
You're not seeing.
You're in speaker presentation view right now, so we can see your next slide and your notes.
Oh, I think maybe I am sharing the wrong side.
Yeah, it's the wrong desktop probably, if you have the.
Hang on one second, because I can actually see the full screen. So I think I've shared the wrong screen here. Okay, can you see that?
Not yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's good.
Perfect.
Okay. So how often are the building and facilities are clean? So patrons responded that they are seeing some clean facilities, so we're happy about that. I'm having a little bit of a delay in terms of advancing here, so bear with me.
okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So how often is the library, including the plaza, a welcoming and comfortable and safe place to visit? So most of the people responding, yes, they do find the library safe. That was encouraging to hear. We did actually add funding for a security guard last year, and so and there was actually a question about whether or not to keep that ongoing. So that was important to get that information. How often is librarian assistance friendly and approachable? And this was really great to hear. We shared this with staff that really people are really happy with the in-person assistance that they're receiving. We also asked about account services. So the previous question being about librarians, this is about establishing accounts and any questions they have about maybe fines or holds. And also it was almost identical. People really had great things to say about the staff being friendly and approachable. How often is it easy to find what you need? This is on the one hand, this is great result that 91%, let's say, if we add always and most of the time, are finding things easy to find, and that's great. For me, I would like to see more in the always category, just because if you think about it, 41% of people are saying, well, most of the time, yeah, it's easy to find, but there's maybe a time or two where it's not so easy. And so for me, I think this is an area that we can improve upon. If you needed in-person help, how useful was the assistance? And here again, we're finding that the staff help is very useful to people. And then we also saw that for accounts staff as well. So really, really great things that were said about staff, and I'll show you that more about in the more detailed comments. So here, this was very interesting. How often do you use the library for its general social ambiance or atmosphere? Very, very rare. Never or rarely, sometimes. So this is starting to get into that kind of thought that, is the library a destination place? Is it a place that I want to go spend time go spend time at? Is it a place where I can connect with other people? And the atmosphere there encourages that. And so the answers to those questions are maybe not so much for people. And you'll see this more here in this slide and the next one. How often do you use the library for visits with regular patrons or library staff? Like never. Library is not perceived, our library today is not really perceived as a meeting place, is not perceived as a community connection place. And so, if we are positioning ourselves as the heart of the community or the community center, this kind of speaks to the fact that, well, we have a long way to go to turn that around, because people are not perceiving our current day library as a place to really to make those connections. How often do you use the library for spaces to sit and chat? Very, very few. And there are reasons for that. I mean, we don't have the space really, and we haven't set up the space because we don't have the space to do that. And so this is also helpful in terms of thinking about the branch library. I mean, what is it that we can improve upon in the new facility that we are hearing expressed by the community? We want to, they're saying that we want a place to connect with others. And so how do we, and we see that in the main library, we don't have those spaces. So how can we don't want to mirror what we have at the main library and the branch library. We want to improve upon it. And So this is helpful to kind of get that information of how people perceive the library and what kind of new spaces do we need to think about. And so here again, how often do you use the library for spaces for discussion or meetings? Very few. I think that getting your items and then being on your way is a typical kind of use that we see for the library. So we asked about what types of referrals or connections would be helpful to you or someone you know. Not a real surprise here, but the top answer was about employment opportunities, and job search help was a service that people really valued. Second and third to that were connections to social services and tax preparation, where more than half indicated that those were things that they would like to see us emphasize and have available. So we had another set of questions. This was a representative question of this set about programs and about trying to get some information about when people prefer programs to be offered. And so this was interesting for us because weekend afternoons are sometimes difficult for us to staff. But this has really told us very plainly that that's really the best time in terms of offering a program, that people were expressing that's when I'm available, and that's when I'd love to go to a library program. So that was helpful for us to see as well. How often are books in condition? This was a really great response that our collection is well maintained. Now this was interesting. We asked people, how likely are you to recommend the library to a friend or a colleague? We had about more than half gave us yes, 10 most likely they will recommend the library to another person. And then the majority 9, 8, 7. So that was really great, just on a numerical basis. So we also asked, well, okay, so you gave us a rating. How likely would you be to recommend? And then we asked, well, can you explain to us why did you say what you said? What was your thinking behind your response? So this was very interesting because even though there were very high numeric responses, some of the actual written responses were, some were great, and you'll see that here on this slide, and other ones were like, well, I think that you have room for improvement, and you'll see that in the next slide, especially. But what I did is we categorized the responses to kind of make some sense out of them. So people had general reasons. I just had a general category, and so like these are actual comments. I'm a big believer in using and supporting local libraries, and I found my overall experience with the library to be very good. Good value for the money. This is the best one in this community. So these are general kind of statements about what kind of the role the library plays in people's lives. What does it mean to them? And so that was what they used. 300 or so responses were based, was the reason for why they rated things the way that they did. So here, the next kind of largest set of responses, or why people chose a specific rating. So even though it might have a high numeric value, some of the comments were kind of identifying areas where we could improve. And so these are sort of representative of that group of collection related responses. So you can see here some pretty direct comments. Entire children's book section can be improved. It's very difficult to find specific CDs, not ADA compliant either. So actually on that point, we actually did just install, a few months ago, we've installed new shelving for CDs, and that is ADA compliant. So that's actually, we could check that off, that those are actually better organized. So that's great. There are other items here that we've actually also tried to address, like the number of holds should be increased. The last one, this last comment, the long hold queue for popular books was also another thing we've been working on. to try to really examine that on a regular basis to make sure that we're providing as many copies as we can to reduce the wait time for folks. So that's something we're working on too. But also just, some of the comments about, ebook availability. I don't expect to find what I need. Those are real concerns. Those are things that we saw in several places. And, some of that, if we wanted to just wave it away and say, well, we don't have the space for maybe some of the collections that other libraries offer, I think that's actually a true statement. In terms of materials per capita, for example, for just children, we're something like 2 or 3 items per capita compared to Palo Alto's about 11 or 12 items per capita just for children's materials. So, it has to do with the budget. It has to do with space. But, I would say space primarily. But this is something we are really taking seriously. It's something that we really value as to the feedback. And it's helpful for guiding our future decisions. Another kind of large category of response was program related, and they have really good, and people related. We're also kind of in the same kind of 90-ish responses. Really positive things to say about the programs and also the people. So that was great. A shout out for the book sale there. Facilities related responses. Now, this is the first sort of patron satisfaction survey, as I mentioned. It was really, really in depth. I mean, it actually probably took people about 15, 20 minutes to respond to the whole survey. There was a lot of questions on there. And we did provide an incentive for people, like we did a raffle for a gift card, a drawing for a gift card. And so I think that was part of the reason why we got the responses we did. But this was really the first time that I have seen in any of the surveys we've done where we're really seeing these comments about this facility is not adequate, dull and overcrowded, small space, older building, older everything. A refresh would be nice. And this was very interesting, not what I'd consider a 21st century library. Pretty dated, needs a new look. It's so dreary. So, in 2007, so that's 13 years ago now, but when we tried to, ask the community, do you want to build a new main library? A lot of the feedback was, we like this building. We like the current facility. We did not get anywhere near the kinds of, these kinds of responses at all. So I think during that time, what we've seen is, other communities have opened new libraries, and I think people have come, new to this area, and other people have moved out and so on. And I think we're starting to see that really people are aware that the Sunnyvale Library facility could be quite different than what it is, and it could be updated. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So that was very interesting. So the other thing we asked was, is there anything that Sunnyvale Library can do differently that would increase the frequency of your visits or improve the quality of your experience? And some people said, no, perfect, great. But then the improvement areas, just by category, facility was where people really kind of focused, followed by programs, more interesting or different or diverse programs, and then collections. So then we also reached out to non-users. As I mentioned, we had a little bit harder time reaching this group. In an ideal world, we would have had like a professional, survey group, doing this. But with our limited staff resources, we were able to get I think it was about 20 responses, reaching out through Nextdoor and some other avenues. And what we asked about was just a few. We realized these are not library users, so we kept it really short. I think there was only about 6 questions. So you'll see all the questions here, but here's what we asked. We said, what prevents you from using the library? And people talked about the fines, like they worry about fines. So we've taken care of that issue. I'm happy to say. through all of your support as well, the board support. That was great. We were able to eliminate fines effective this fiscal year. This was interesting too. Library hours are hard to remember, not open at convenient times. This is something that is also staying with us as we move through this pandemic period, is where do we set those hours and how can we make it easy for people, which is a big challenge. So those were some of the feedback we got. And then do you have any needs related reasons why you may not use the library? You know, people said that they have their own computer and they own internet access, so they didn't really see a need to use the library for that. They might buy or rent their own books. They get their information from other places. I think that we've actually seen that, particularly with adults, a decline. And then it used to be where they would ask more of the reference staff, you know, some basic kind of information related questions. And I think that service has been in the decline for many years. And so people don't think of the library as a place necessarily for adults to get information. Children's, on the other hand, and teens has been a pretty steady, actually, in terms of the library as a source for information. So do you have any experience-related reasons why you don't use the library? And none of the above was the biggest one, so not quite sure. Selection of the largest kind of unsatisfactory one was the selection of books, the collection. If there was a better collection or different collection, then you know, perhaps they would use the library. So we asked them to finish the sentence. You know, I or my family would use the library if you offered more of, and how did you finish it? So the top response was digital content I can access from home. And so that was actually another thing that we kept in mind as we moved through the pandemic, or moving through the pandemic. And we added a lot of digital content. We really increased what's available from home. And we made it as easy as possible to get a library card. And so that's something that we've really focused on, is to increase this digital content. Training, I guess the other one was opportunities to borrow non-traditional items. And so this is something we're also working on right now. We actually have a tool lending library that we hope to launch sometime in the very shortly here in the next few months. And we have also a new video game collection, and induction stovetops, cooktops. We partnered with ESD to loan out induction cooktops. And that's just the beginning. We're looking at other non-traditional items to loan out that may be of use to the community. So I or my family would likely use the library if you offered, and finish the sentence. And then the highest response was a tech training lab where I can get hands-on instruction. Unfortunately, we actually did have that planned for this year. We actually had taken it all the way to the point of preparing an architect. We had approved architectural plans. We actually had a permit that was approved by the city. Unfortunately, the funding for this was basically deferred right as the pandemic hit, as a result of the pandemic, actually. And so we can resubmit it for consideration, but it's something we would have to bring up again this year to see if there's funding available. So anyway, that's on hold for right now. Group study rooms was also another high response, and that was also, we were actually going to install group study rooms and a tech training lab, so that was put on hold. But those are things also that we were planning for the branch library, so that would be an improvement. I think this is the last slide. Yes. So what areas of the library collection would you strengthen in order to encourage your use of the library? And the top respondents were DVDs or digital music, video, and audiobooks. So I can say that because of the pandemic, we've actually diverted money from DVDs to, it's been really focused on digital and also ebooks, I should say. So the digital content has really got a boost. And then I would say followed by children's books. Those have been the things, and so that is nice that we've been aligning it to where the non-users were saying, well, if you could improve that, I might consider using the library. So we hope that we've been changing as we've been changing and adapting services through the pandemic. This was helpful to kind of as a starting point to help guide us. The other thing that I should say that we were, I guess I could get out of this slideshow here, is, let's see here, let's stop my share here. Okay, so how we were intending to use this was, this information was going to go feed into the development of a strategic plan, a library strategic plan, and it still is, but the strategic plan has been put on hold just because we have other kind of pressing needs right now. So this is really great information. We may get to a point, early next year where it would be time, let's say February of 2021, to maybe do another one, and we would consider doing another one at that point. The landscape will have changed, right? So it would be very interesting to see how people's needs have changed as well. So that concludes my presentation. Did you have any questions about it?
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry. Yeah. I had one question on the presentation. When you mentioned you were going to work with the architect on the study rooms and tech training room, where would the space come from? Was that a existing space or new space?
So the space was planned in the main library to be part of existing space. It's not a new space. We would be taking away what is right now seating area, moving seating to more of the center of the room, and then basically adding two glass walls that allow us to kind of create new rooms essentially. And that would give us the ability to create actually two group study rooms and a tech training lab. And then the seating that we would have missed would be more kind of in a central area that's away from those kind of glassed off rooms. So,
thank you.
Steve, I do have a question. For the survey, did you follow up with people who answer sometimes never or rarely? Because I I see most of the responses are very positive. I just wondered, did the library follow up with the response that is not very supportive? Do you have any follow-up session with that type of people?
No, we didn't. It was quite an undertaking just to get the results, and so that's something we could consider for the future. I think there were a number of questions where I would like to have probed a little further, right? Especially seeing the results. Tell me more about the never. Tell me more about digital content. Anything specific that you can tell me about? There's or programs. There were a lot of interesting comments. This is a very high level kind of view. There are, and we also did tell people that we're going to use this information in the aggregate. We're not going to single anybody out. But certainly we could like next time we could include a question that says, would you be interested in being part of a follow-up focus group, to provide, more information on your answers, or that, and that way people can give a response that, that yes, I would, or no, my answer is my answer, and just, leave it at that. So anyway, that's something we could consider for next time.
Yeah, it would be great to have a focus group after the survey. Yeah, thank you.
I have more of a comment than a question, but it feels like a lot of the learnings from the survey can impact the new branch library directly. We're going to learn a lot about the facilities issue and the community spaces and all of that. So I think that's actually going to be fascinating for how it gets applied. And then like what we learned there, we can bring back to the main library. I think it's a really fascinating survey. Thanks for doing that.
No, thank you. I really agree with that. I think we're looking to the branch library as a kind of an opportunity to set a new standard for library services in Sunnyvale, because you know, really our facility, I'm not going to speak ill of the library, but it's really 1985 was the last time the building was expanded, and you know, since that time the population of Sunnyvale has grown quite a bit, right? So you know, and the needs of the communities has changed, and so it's been difficult to adapt service and adapt the space to meet those changing needs. But here in the branch library, we have an opportunity, a golden opportunity to kind of reset services and say, okay, this is what it could be like. This is, you know, if you have you have a new starting point, you know, this is what's possible. So that's really exciting.
Any more questions from the board? If no, then we move to the oral communication. This category provides an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items not listed on the agenda. This session is limited to 15 minutes. Raise your digital hand now or dial line *9 on your telephone if you wish to address the board of the library trustee. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak?
Chair Lai, we have no individuals wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we move to the consent calendar. Raise your digital hand now or press *9 on your telephone if you wish to address the board. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak?
We have no individuals wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to move the consent calendar? May I have the motion?
I so motion.
Okay, may I have a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 We're gonna do a roll call vote.
I'm gonna do, yeah, sorry, thanks, Steve. Board Member Isaac,
Aye.
or Vice Chair Wang,
Aye.
Chair Lai,
Aye.
Board Member Jane.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move to the public hearing, general business. First item is the annual review of Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected and appointed official. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Chair Lai. I don't have a detailed staff report other than to say that this is an important part of our service in the city. Your participation in the board is very valuable, and the 2020 Code of Ethics I think would have been reviewed most recently for our new board member Jane. However, I think we have this on the agenda every year because it does have such importance, and just on general terms, it kind of governs and outlines the way that the board and council and staff work together, right, and work together in a respectful fashion. So I think this is just an opportunity to really pause a moment if there's any questions about the Code of Ethics, to raise those questions. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Any input or comment from the board? Okay, thank you. Then we move to the second item. The second item is the preliminary discussion of 2021 Master Work Plan. Do we have a staff report?
So we're at the beginning of this preparation for the work plan for next year. So this will come up again. And I think we have, so the final month to approve the master work plan is actually in December. So this month, I think the main purpose is we just want to have some preliminary discussion. Are there things that you are interested in for next year that in terms of maybe presentations or kind of areas of focus for the library that we could consider, adding to the work plan?
I'm just curious when planning for various getting things in motion for the branch library comes into play.
So you'd like to have something about the branch library?
Well, do we need that in 2021, or is that going to really start in later than that?
Yeah. So the very next steps are October 28th. As you know, we'll have a review of the design, and that will be for the joint Board of Library Trustees and the Parks and Recreation Commission. November goes to council. Then we're looking at a period of about 16 months of design. So it actually would span all of 2021. We'd be looking at starting construction, if everything goes well, in spring of 2022. So what I'll do is I'll make a note. I'm not sure if we're going back to the board during the design process, but I'll check on that to see if there's any touch points. Certainly there should be updates, right? I'll be keeping you informed as we go. But in terms of, I'll definitely check to see if there's any kind of formal presentations from the architects, which is what October will be. That will be delivered by the ABA architectural team. So I'll check in for those kind of formal milestones for 2021.
And also, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the work plan is really just a template. We can add items to the agenda at any time. So just because it's not on our work plan doesn't mean that we can't put it on our agenda. So
thank you for that clarification. We can add things that are that we have the staff resources to. Yeah,
correct. Yes. That's a big clarification.
No, thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. And just to maybe add on to that, some of the typical things that we have on there are recognition of service. We have a selection of chair and vice chair, the annual review of code of ethics. We have a review of the recommended budget. We also have some annual library statistics and trends. We'll be doing that later this year. And also we have some study issue, some kind of placeholders for talking about study issues we can talk about anytime. In fact, I think it's a standing item on the agenda, but and also working and the work plan. Those are kind of the things that are kind of part of of each work plan, and then we add on to it as we can.
Yeah, Steve, I do have a question for the library services and the digital divide. Is it possible to move it earlier, let's say March meeting? Because I do see that there is a lead to discuss. I just wanted, because I don't know the manpower of the library, is it possible to do that?
Well, certainly talking about things now for March it's much more doable for those types of things. So can you tell me more though? I'd like to know about like what interests the board about the library services and digital divide.
Because I don't know, because I have previously I attend the a conference regarding the digital divide within the school, or anything that the library could help bridge the digital divides, because I don't know the current situation in the Sunnyvale. I'm just wondering, is it possible to have some information to see the need of the patrons? Is there any specific need that the library could help? So before we have a action item, I would like to learn more about the lead first. Is there any lead? And also the current services that the library provide to the community.
Okay. That's great, thank you.
I think maybe because I think we are having the branch library, maybe we could reach out to the school district to ask, because they know more about this.
Yeah, we're having some related discussions about like the tech training lab in the branch library, and about whether or not to have like a fixed tech training lab, or like or just a space that gets set up and taken down, set up and taken down. You know, my sense of the demographic is that we probably could benefit from a fixed kind of area where it's just kind of set up all the time. And that was something we were going to talk to the district about shortly. So yeah, no, I think that's possible. So at this point, I'm not saying yes or no. I would just really like to get some feedback as to what should go on there. And the next, do we have this, Elizabeth? Do we have this on the agenda for October?
This item is on August 2nd.
Right, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, discuss the work plan. When is the next?
Are you asking when the next meeting is?
We have an October meeting, I think, but
yeah, October 5th.
Well, we could add it if it's not there. I was just going to say that we could maybe provide, take your ideas, right? And then, you know, we could lay out the meeting dates, and then actually fill in, you know, okay, well, this could go in, this presentation could go, or this discussion item could go on which meeting date, so you could kind of see where things land. So at this meeting, I think it's helpful to kind of get those ideas, and then at the October meeting, if it's not on there already, we could add the work plan, and then you know, you could kind of review like a calendar, that would show you kind of, well, this is what we think is reasonable, and kind of react to.
Can I had a question. I don't know if this is really an agenda item, but one of the things I think might be interesting to discuss in the future is when everything gets back to normal and we can all go to the library again. There's obviously a lot of learnings that we've had during this shelter in place, of where technology worked really well and how we might incorporate it moving forward. Because I think there's a lot of, well, it's both frustrating. We've also learned a lot about how we can use it more effectively. And it would be really, I don't know how it would be interesting to understand like what you guys found to be useful and what you want to continue doing, and how we can incorporate that into library services moving forward. I don't have any specific ideas. I'm just kind of thinking that we are learning a lot during this time, and some things are really working well. And it would be nice if we find things like that we can incorporate them moving forward.
Yeah, I can think of some things off the top of my head already. You know, how we went virtual for summer reading, and actually just our reservation system for rooms and equipment that we brought on because of the pandemic that allowed us to implement the express hold pickup by appointment we were able to create it in like 5 minutes, you know. So those are things that like were improvements like right away that we're just going to continue. One other thing, you're kind of making me think about something like the collections would be something that I think we at some point may need to talk about. I don't know if it's a 2021 discussion, but you'll recall, I think it was at the last meeting, it seems like so long ago, but at the last meeting, I gave an update as to, the collection funding is really coming out of, the elimination of the fines and overdue fines, that revenue had to come out of somewhere. And so it came out of collections. And so really over the long term, we're underfunded in collections. And so that is not sustainable on a long-term basis. So at some point, that's going to need some attention, I think.
So you will bring this topic to the board for discussion?
I don't know that I don't know that it's the right time in 2021. We've actually been in this situation, unfortunately, before, where it was actually during a budget reduction period. I want to say it was 2009 or so, where money was taken from the collection budget because of the city fiscal issues. And what it took was to restore it was it actually was a study issue or a budget issue. I can't remember. I think it was a study issue generated by the Board of Library Trustees. And really what it was looking at, collection funding in other libraries, doing some studies about, materials that are available per capita, and doing some comparison of that. And then, making some, kind of observations about the impact of underfunding collections and so on. So unfortunately, there's a precedent for this. And I just kind of want to, I don't know that it's actually, I just kind of want to throw it out there at this point as something to think about. It's something that needs to be addressed at some point. So whether it's maybe it starts with maybe just kind of, staff providing the board information. Maybe that's how it starts, is like, an update for you on collection budget.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Right. Because that would be helpful even for us to kind of put our arms around, well, what happened? What happened last year? How did it impact this year? So we can think about the timing of it. My suspicion is that actually I know that the city will be facing a very another tight year in terms of budget. So my sense of things, it's not appropriate really to request like an addition, but certainly I think we could do more work in terms of providing you the information about, well, where are we with collections and how has the spending occurred and where are we seeing demands for more or for less, and those types of things, and maybe even doing some comparison of to the extent that we're able to with other libraries, just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at, because I think it's important for the board to understand that.
Yes, Steve, I might have missed this, but collections are still important after all the fines were eliminated. Maybe I didn't get the full context on that one.
Yeah, so what happened was at the last meeting, I talked about it was before you joined, Rahul. It was in the early part of 2020. There was a plan to eliminate the overdue materials. So we had about $167,000 of revenue that would be eliminated. And so we needed to identify, well, where are we going to find the money to offset that revenue loss? And so we looked to two things. We looked to an increase in revenue from our recreation classes. And that was supposed to start in July. And then we also were gonna take some money out of collections. A little less than half of it was going to come from collections. Well, what actually happened though was that the revenue that we were expecting to realize, starting in July, that never happened, right?
That's
Because
right.
and so what ended up happening was the entire amount came out of collections, and that really was never it wasn't part of the plan.
Oh, right, right. Okay, I get that. Sorry.
So,
I got confused by the term collections. I was thinking of collection as the.
oh yes, yes, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes,
okay, sorry. That's right. You explained that before. Thank you.
collection materials, I should
Yes,
say.
material.
Right.
Okay.
Libraries use such lingo. No, just ask if something's not clear. I appreciate that.
Just an offhand comment. I'm curious if anyone has looked through archives from 1919 about lessons they learned in the last pandemic.
That's a great idea. Yeah. No, I haven't. Yeah. Okay. So that was one idea I probably shouldn't have even thought of, but I actually think that's actually important. But what other I really like to hear your ideas about things that would be of value to you as board members. And this is just the beginning, so if you don't, we can talk about it again later. So.
Steve, I do have a question regarding the strategic plan. So what is the next step? Because we plan to have the meeting on April 5th, and after the strategic plan, what we are planning to do? What's the next step?
So the strategic plan, we could potentially put on there as like a to be scheduled item because we don't know when that's gonna start up again. But the next step where we were at was we were developing goals and working with our individual work units in the library and also in recreation to develop goals and objectives that were in alignment with our kind of overall mission statement. And then we were going to test those, kind of validate those against the feedback that we got through the outreach process. And then
how to validate the idea? So you mean outreach? So by survey or by what?
Yeah, by survey. And so, we had a lot of information by survey that I just went over the results with you, right? So to kind of review those results, and again, this was sort of highlight level, but there's maybe 50, you saw maybe 50% of the results. I think what I consider to be the most important, and kind of, looking at that feedback and maybe even potentially going out again to the public to say, here's what we've heard, here's what we've developed based on that. Would really love your comment, on that. So we were kind of at that stage, and then also going to the board right around this time to get your feedback as to what you think is most important, and then also to see sort of how things are developing and where you'd like your feedback as to where you think things should go. So that was kind of the next. We were just right at the starting that stage where the pandemic hit and we had to put it on pause. So that was actually right around mid-February. So we thought by April 5th we could have that coming to the board, the library trustees, and so that's why that ended up there. If we put it on again for next year, I would say we should put it on as a to be scheduled. Because we don't actually know when it's going to come back. So.
Because I think in 2019 we did have a presentation on library services for senior or maybe for disability or maybe for disadvantaged group. But at that time we just talked about the services, and we didn't talk about at the gap how we could improve on. We did not talk about any specific action item. So I'm just wondering, for the strategic plan, are we going to working on it? Yeah, but I know it is a very difficult time on us. Yeah, just based on the manpower of the library to see what we can do.
Yeah, it's really, as I was mentioned before the meeting, I mean, we're really, it's tough
Yeah,
to
totally understand. Yeah.
long-term plans when we're really worried about tomorrow. I mean,
Mhm.
literally, I mean, we just started a new service today, and by the way, well, I'm going to talk more about this, but the new appointments that we have starting tomorrow, they're completely booked. Within like 30 minutes, they were completely booked solid. So
Mhm.
and now we're like, oh gosh, what do we do? So we've got to
Mhm.
make sure that we're ready for that service. So it's been that type of summer. It's been that type of year where you know we're really we're trying to buy ourselves time and building a model that is sustainable that we can support for over the long period. But you know, the wildfire was not something we anticipated. You know,
Yeah.
closure to air quality and so on. So again, I'll talk more about it later. But um, anyway, so it's been tough to do long range planning.
Yeah, I'm so thankful and I'm so blessed to live in Sunnyvale because I know all the Sunnyvale librarians and staff are working very hard on it. I'm so blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any additional comment from the board? If no, then we move to the non-agenda items and comment. Do we have any board comments, board member comments? Any? No? If no, then we move to the staff comment.
Okay, so thank you, Chair Lai. Just a few updates since our last meeting in August, and I'll try to be brief. But a lot's happened, so just a few minutes of your time on this. So since the August meeting, a few important service updates were that we added grab bags. So grab bags are basically material that people could place a hold on a grab bag of, let's say, mysteries or thrillers or children's DVDs or some other genre. And then librarians would select 5 items, and they won't be, they'll just be a kind of a random assortment of these items, and then of this genre. And then the patron would pick up this grab bag. So we saw this as a way of providing more material to the public. We also we were getting requests for by parents especially. I just need 10 children's picture books. I don't care what they are. I just and so rather than having to go through one by one, they can now just request a grab bag. And we've seen, since we launched it a couple of weeks ago, we've seen really great demand. In the first few days, we had about 200 holds that we were set to process. So far, it's been a very popular service. So that started. The other thing that happened in late August was we launched an instant online access card. So what this is it gives you, if you fill out a library card application online, you now don't have to wait at all to start using library resources online. After you complete your application, you get an email, a confirmation email, and that confirmation email has everything you need to get started. So we were really happy to be able to change our library card registration process. So to accommodate that, we made a special push to do that in advance of National Library Card Sign Up Month, which is September. And so we've been promoting it along those lines, and we had a proclamation and a special order of the day that went to council in late August for National Library Card Sign Up Month in September. So a brief update on book sale. The Friends of the Library had a great book sale. They had to postpone it due to the air quality, but they postponed it 1 week, and when they held it, they were very successful. Brought in, I think, more than $3,000, as I recall, $3,500 or so. And so we've been working with them on continuing to accept donations. They've told me they're all caught up with donations and are ready to receive more. So we're really trying to figure out ways, and I think we've stumbled upon one. Well, not stumbled. Well, we figured out a way as of this week so that we can start accepting donations on all of our service days. Right now, we only do it during sidewalk service, and we really want to try to be as easy and consistent as possible. So we'll probably be making modifications to donation drop off sometime in the near future. The biggest news, I think, since August was, you'll remember we were going to implement a new service model, a new service hours. So this involved introducing a new express holds pickup service. And then we were also changing our hours at the same time. We felt being responsive to what we heard from the community. They requested evening hours, weekend hours, morning hours. And so you'll recall that prior to this change, we were just Monday through Friday, 1 to 6. And so we made this change. Unfortunately, and the timing was just like you couldn't make it up. The timing of the first closures due to air quality also coincided with the launch of this new service model and the new service hours. So it's been very difficult to kind of assess, how is that the new service hours going when we're not even able to provide the service. So we had to develop kind of a new procedures around air quality very quickly. We've been working with our neighboring libraries to be consistent with what they're doing, and really what we were seeing was after the air quality index hits a measurement of 150 or higher, which is considered to be unhealthy by the EPA, an unhealthy category, we've been closing our outdoor service to the public. And so we were seeing that from some libraries like Palo Alto and from San Francisco and so on. And so we place a high priority on safety for both patrons and staff. And so we made that decision, and it's been really rough, I should tell you, because we did not anticipate so many days of it being considered unhealthy or worse. So we're now adapting again. I'll tell you about that in a second. But the other thing that happened in late August was the governor released new guidelines for reopening, right? For reopening different sectors of the economy. And so libraries are actually considered in the retail, as part of retail sector. And so in the new color-coded system, the Santa Clara County is considered in the red category, if I'm not mistaken, which means that for retail, you can open up to 50% indoors capacity. So up to 50% capacity indoors. So, all of that was happening. We were, introducing a new service model. We were, we were closing sometimes last minute due to air quality. The air quality has been really challenging because the forecast for air quality is not as reliable as, if there's a big storm moving in, right? And so there's also different, kind of measurements, different websites that provide different, indications of what that forecast will be, and some were right and some were wrong. And one of the websites that we've been turning to quite a bit is called Purple Air, which is a crowdsourced source of information that we found to be pretty reliable, but it's not a forecast tool. It really provides you kind of real time. So the difficulty about making decisions real time is that that in order to provide or to cancel or to plan service, you need to have some sort of window of planning time, right? Of notification time. Like if you decide to cancel service, you can't just cancel service and close the door. That frustrates a lot of people because maybe they've made a trip to Sunnyvale from far away. We actually had somebody come from San Francisco to pick up a book, and if we cancel service and they've driven all that way, well, that's very frustrating, right? So what we've done in light of all that is we have done two main things I wanted to leave you with tonight, and to start addressing these the new environmental conditions we're faced with, and the need to really modify our service so that we can continue service. Because I'm sure patrons don't like, and we've heard from some of them that we're closed, and staff don't like it either, to be quite honest with you. We very much want to connect people with physical materials. And so if we are saying that it's not, if we're saying that we can't provide service indoors due to COVID concerns and safety, and then we're saying we can't provide service outdoors due to air quality concerns, well, what service can we provide? So that's been the struggle that we've been kind of working with. And I can talk more about indoor service if you like as well. But there's two things that we focused on just recently to try to address that. So one is we've introduced a new service effective tomorrow, and it's called Express Pickup, Express Holds Pickup by Appointment. So what this is it's going to be a service that we continue to offer during all hours that we don't have regular service. So like as an example, on Tuesdays, we are open for Express Holds Pickup 3 to 7. So on a normal day when we're open, we'll provide that service 3 to 7. Anybody can walk up, get their hold, as long as they call 1 hour in advance, and that's the service. But in addition to that, we'll have appointments, and that will be earlier in the day, and that may just work better for people's schedule. But we'll offer appointments between, we're going to start with between 10 and 2, and they'll have 15-minute appointment windows where we will place the bags just outside the front door at the beginning of that appointment. If for some reason they don't come as they scheduled the appointment, we'll just retrieve the bag and they can pick it up at a future time. But this will give people an opportunity to retrieve their materials. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we just launched the service about 3 hours ago, and within 30 minutes, all of tomorrow's appointments were completely booked. So tomorrow, because we know that it's going to be a bad air quality day, based on the best information we have, what we did is we converted our regular service hours, because that would have been just closed time, and we just made those all appointments. So basically tomorrow, instead of being open 3 to 7 for walk-up service, we have appointments from 11 to 7. Every 15 minutes, we have somebody coming to pick up a bag, and those are completely booked as of right now. So we think that this has a number of advantages, because no matter where we set our service hours, it's not going to meet the needs of everybody, and we know that. But we'd like to, right? We'd like to be as accessible as possible. And so by being able to provide service outside those non-service hours, like for example, Monday we were closed to the public, but starting next Monday we'll actually be open for appointments. So we can expand our service. We can make the library material pickups available to more people at more hours. So we think that's a real advantage. The other advantage is if we have to close due to air quality or our regular service, or because of we're coming into the rainy season in a couple of months. If we have to close for any reason like that, this is a service that will continue. It's an all-weather service, air quality or not. We can operate it safely. It's safe for the patrons. It's safe for staff. So that's another really great thing. Another really great benefit that we're seeing with this is that those people that maybe up till now have perhaps not utilized the library at all, because maybe they fall into an at-risk category. For COVID, they may have underlying conditions or for other reasons fall into an at-risk category. This is an opportunity for someone like that to pick up their library materials in a contactless, safe manner with nobody around them. There's no crowds. There's no other people on the plaza, except maybe one or two, returning items just by coincidence maybe. But there's no. You can keep a distance from a lot of people in an outdoor environment. So that's a real benefit too. Also, we think there's a benefit in terms of just being able to mitigate the effects of the canceled service, right? Because being closed is not something we enjoy at all, and it's really not sustainable. So we launched it today. We're gonna have appointments available up to 10 days in advance. And people can get on there and they can check to see if any of the appointments work for them. They'll get a confirmation email right away. The day of the appointment, we will check out their items to them. And then they just come to the library at that time, and we have their bag of items just waiting for them on a table just outside the front door. So that's one thing that we started, and we think that's going to be helpful, and we're very happy to see that people are already using the appointment. So that's great, and really we hope we don't have to use this to replace our outdoor service very often. But again, we're having to do that tomorrow. We're having to close due to air quality. And so that does give us that option, to expand those regular service hours, convert them to appointments. So we'll be offering it regularly, and then as needed to replace those outdoor service hour closures. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we're working on a way to safely operate in all weather conditions. So we know that it's eventually we're going to have rain, right? We're going to have storms. We're going to have just bad weather, and we want people to be safe, and we want people to be able to access the library. And so, what can we do now to prepare for that? And so, what we're working on right now, just as a preview, is we are working on installing some canopies that are all weather canopies essentially, and they would be set up permanently. Essentially, they would cover a very large section of the entrance to the library. That would provide a roof, so to speak, to keep the elements, especially rain, off of people when they come to pick up their items. We would be providing a service. We would basically stop the setup that we've started. That's kind of more closer to the parking lot. We would bring everything back to the front door, which was one of our goals of doing this express holds pickup. We found the service from the front door is working. Like, people, for the most part, people are getting it. They're using it. It's been pretty successful on those few days that we've been able to offer since since it started about a month ago. It's only been a few days, as I mentioned, because we had closures during those times. But for those times, it's actually been worked really well. And so we are planning to modify our service so that we can be just up the front door. We have this really blanket of, actually it's going to be a multi-tented kind of covering. And that would provide an area for, and when there's sun, it would be shade, right? We're providing shade, but when there's rainy conditions, this also provides, keeps rain off of people, and allows them to pick up items safely from the library front doors. So those are the two things that we're working on right now. We are also interfacing with our neighboring libraries. There's been a lot of discussion due primarily to the governor's announcement. There are some libraries we are aware that are attempting to consider like a lobby reopening. We've heard from other libraries. In one case, a nearby neighboring jurisdiction brought that up, and their city leaders said that no, they don't want them to do that. I think in other jurisdictions, they might be having a little bit more success with that. And then still in others, they said, no, we're not even going to consider that until sometime in 2021. So in Sunnyvale, we are of the belief that it is the safest option to continue to provide service outdoors, and to really try to identify those areas that are in need of the community, and really focus on, well, how do we do that from an outdoor service point? And so that's really why we focused on, okay, well, we've got to figure out how to how to do that. And so that's why we introduced the appointments as a way to do that. And then how can we modify our service so that we can provide librarian help from outside? How do we, that's why we introduced computers, for circulation and and we increase the hotspots, so that people who have those needs can get their needs met. And so now it's really kind of turning attention to, well, how are those items that we introduced, how are they being used? Looking at, well, how many people are waiting for hotspots, for example, and what do we do now to make sure that people don't have to wait 6 months for a hotspot? I don't think that's, I think we checked just before the meeting, and the wait isn't, I think there's like 30 people waiting, and there's like 30 hotspots. So I would like it to be lower, right? And so we have some combinations of devices that we can do. But anyhow, looking at our strategy is really looking at how do we provide the best service we can, and from an outdoor service area. Because the reality is, if we open up indoors, we are open up indoors. I mean, we have changed our interior of the library so much that there would be a lot of safety concerns about patrons moving around. For example, there's no tables in the library right now. We are using every single one of our tables to provide our outdoor service. We would have to discontinue our express pickup, our holds pickup, which means everybody who needs help would have to come into the library, and they would have to go and pick up their items, and they'd have to use the self-checks. I think a lot of people, or some people anyway, would be uncomfortable with that scenario. And so, for the state to say you can open 25% or 50% capacity in our library, really what that means is, if we open, let's say, just the library lobby, we did a square foot kind of analysis recently, and we could have 50 people in the lobby with social distancing. Well, okay, you take 50% of that, okay, that's 25 people. So then you have 25 people that you're regulating coming inside at any time. And is that providing better service than serving all the people that we have been helping much more quickly by checking them out, for them, and they just pick up a bag and walk away? we have really high volume of people, and to limit the numbers of people to just lobby service is really going to be it would be great for staff, to be honest with you, because it's really staff intensive what we're doing. But I think we think that for the patrons, it's not only safer outside, but it's also going to provide ultimately the better service option to provide more and better and safer service for patrons as well. And so we know that's not going to be, not everyone's going to agree with that, but that's kind of where we are in Sunnyvale right now. That's what we're thinking about. How to keep everybody safe, at the same time, how to provide the best possible service. So with that, that's my staff report. I'm sorry for taking so long, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, you go first, Matt.
One thing you mentioned gave me an idea. The library's wireless service is not accessible in the parking lot, at least not to a usable degree. And I was wondering if it would be prohibitively difficult to change that. Would you be able to just change some of the transponders or whatever and let people access the wireless from the parking lot?
Thanks for the question, Mark. We did look into that question. I had the same question myself, and it would be possible, but it wouldn't have the impact that maybe you and I both would want, because really what we'd be talking about, just in terms of networking, is really placing an access point as far as we can on the building that is going to provide that coverage, a limited area in the parking lot. So if we were to advertise that service and then people were to basically congregate in the parking lot, all that traffic is going through one access point. So it becomes like a bottleneck, is how it was described to me. And so then at that point, it's not really, there could be issues. We would expect issues in terms of the internet speeds and so on. The other kind of problematic area is that we do have a fair number of people who are actually around the building at night, all hours. We actually had an issue with a smoke detector going off 3 times over the last Friday into Saturday morning. And the issue was somebody was smoking right next to the mechanical room, and that smoke was going into the mechanical room, and the smoke detector was going off. And this happened 3 times, and the library staff evacuated. So having people come, like advertising to say like, oh, we can come to the library parking lot to access Wi-Fi could create some considerable issues in terms of just managing that service. It would basically fall onto public safety to kind of provide that security and that patrol. We've actually, from time to time, because of the issues with people around the building outside, they've actually been a request to turn off the Wi-Fi, believe it or not. So I think the expansion of the access of the Wi-Fi would be a much, not impossible, but it'd be more challenging to pursue. So I did make some preliminary kind of inquiries, and that was what I found, that it's not an easy road to travel to accomplish that. And so what we really did at the time was we decided to pivot and say, okay, well, how can we get internet into the hands of people that need it? And so that's why we tripled the number of hotspots that were available. So. And I should say also that the Wi-Fi is accessible from the plaza area and also from the picnic benches. So maybe not from your car, I can see that, but from we did make a point to measure the Wi-Fi effectiveness from those areas, and that's why we placed the picnic benches where we did, is so that people could sit down and on a park bench and access the Wi-Fi.
And I have a question. When you talk about the reopening, so is it mandatory for the library to reopen, or the library have a choice to open the lobby, or we can choose to use the way that you are doing right now?
It's not mandatory. It's an option. So the state provides the guidelines and says this is what you could do. And so just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so it's really it's up to the local jurisdiction to decide up to what level you are you're wanting to, are you wanting to go up to 50% capacity or to the maximum of whatever the state guidelines are. And so within the local jurisdiction, it's really this, city manager. And so I've been working with, the director closely on director of library and recreation services. Oh, and by the way, did I tell you we have a new name? It's Library and Recreation Services. I don't know if I did, sorry. But anyway, we're a new department. So I've been working closely with her, and she's working closely with the city manager, and very supportive of everything I just shared with you. But we definitely, every time we changes like this come up, we're careful to explain our latest thinking and make sure that everyone's kind of in alignment. Certainly if we had some instruction, right, from the city manager to do a different, to do a different kind of thing, we certainly would do that. So, everything I shared with you is in alignment with how the local jurisdiction right now would like to proceed. So.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, along those lines, is the city manager putting in or establishing like guidelines of when, like what are the criteria that we need to meet or that we feel comfortable reopening?
No.
Okay, just kind of see it played by ear.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. I definitely think it's smart not to open yet. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, no, and it's been a hands-off approach. It's, to my knowledge, not just with the library, but with other areas. Kind of leaving it to the program experts, shall we say, of the people that are closest to the service. Trying to having to adapt and modify services to best meet the needs of the public. I think, as I said, we keep city manager updated, and if there are things that are not consistent with how he would like things to proceed, he would definitely call those out. But no, there's no. It's really tough to establish guidelines. Even libraries attempted to do that, and in fact, we actually had a kind of a phased reopening plan that we were kind of working on, and that was maybe 3 months ago. But things continue to change and things continue to evolve. And so nobody anticipated the wildfires, for example, or at least we didn't. I'm sure some people did, but we didn't. It's difficult to establish those guidelines too. So I certainly don't fault anyone for not having them available.
My own feeling about reopening is that shouldn't even consider it until a vaccine is available. And something else you might want to do is get some pictures of the interior of the library volunteering for the Friends, I'm in there and I see it, and it's a different place from what the other board members are probably used to.
Yeah, that would be great if Steve could share the picture with us.
That's a great idea. Things have changed a lot. So yeah, I would invite you for a tour, but
yeah, let's do that.
Virtual.
Virtual tours are good too.
well, thank you very much.
Oh, one other anecdote from the book sale. At our last book sale, one person bought more than $400 worth of books.
Wow.
And we asked her why, and the only real answer we got is, well, I'm kind of in withdrawal from a lack of books.
Aww.
That's great.
Wow.
Well, it was, considering the Friends prices, was that just like 3 books or how many books?
That's close to 400 books.
Wow.
Whoa. Did she take it home in a semi truck?
It was 2 trips, I know that. At least 2.
Crazy.
That's great. We should tide her over for a while, I hope.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm all over the ebooks now. I'm discovering that catalog like I never have before.
Yeah, I do have a question regarding the instant access. For the instant access, does it allow the patrons to access the online resources like Hoopla or they do?
Yeah. And you can actually place holds right away too, which is a really great. I mean, you could place holds for physical items right away. The only thing you can't do with the instant access is actually pick up a physical item. So you can place a hold, and then when you come to pick it up, you'd have to convert that card to a show proof of address. Is all you need to do. Proof of address and proof of ID. And then we would basically, convert that to a full access card, and then you could borrow those items that you placed on hold. But yeah,
how many new sign up until now? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
How many new sign up?
I'm sorry. How many?
I mean the numbers of the new sign up for the instant access. Do you have the number?
I don't have the number. I can get that for you. Yeah, that's a good. I'll find out. So how many instant access cards have been created?
Yeah, and also how many people are using Hoopla or other online resources? Because I'm curious, it may impact the budget maybe next year.
Yeah, I mean let's talk more about the collections, because I think we could do just one presentation. We could do one kind of overview, or we could do digital on its own. I mean, digital on its own is really like a whole subject on its own. So we might want to split it up somehow. But yeah, okay. I'll definitely get numbers on the interior. The instant access card. Can't read my own writing. And we can look to like a more fuller presentation about the digital usage and how that's going.
Yeah, thank you. Any more comments or input from the board? If no, the meeting is now adjourned at 8:34. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take good care and good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.